All right, welcome everyone to Herding Squirrels, a podcast about modern teams. Joining us today is Ilya Lezemnik. Welcome, Ilya.
Hey, Brendan, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We're excited to chat with you and play. A little more for our audience about Ilya. Ilya is the director of infrastructure at Placer.ai, where he leads the engineering teams behind their large-scale cloud systems. With over a decade of experience in DevOps, cloud architecture, and automation, Ilya is known for driving innovation, building robust infrastructure, and championing modern engineering practices. He's a HashiCorp contributor and a passionate advocate for open source and tech community knowledge sharing. We're so excited to play with you today, Ilya. I'd like to jump to our first build, which is build a model that tells a story about who you are outside of work.
Oh,
As I pick up my
mine
model.
is I don't know if you can see it well.
Yeah.
So my free time's kind of liberating with the flag, and I have a little chef's hat. I'm into food. I'm in New York now for a year now, and my wife told me that we've been to more than 100 restaurants or food places in the last year. So I'm very passionate about that. So I'm like with a little cake here,
Yeah.
and sort of like that.
I want you to think about what is the best team experience you've ever been a part of, right? Either as a leader or participant, and build a model that tells a story of why that team experience was so amazing. All right, Ilya, let's see your model.
So, oh, fell off.
It's
So
got action.
yeah, so a team I really loved working as part of is just a team that let me, especially like when I was much less experienced, it taught me a lot of what I know today is you should give people the freedom to be able to experiment and do like cookie things like this and be imaginative, but it should give you like the guardrails so you don't fall off the edge and you can really kind of condense that energy into something that's constructive, that's either a good product or good teamwork, and because I feel you need to balance those things out. Otherwise, you can be very creative, but you're all over the place, or you can be too constrictive, but then it's boring. This is how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like you really had that well done in this specific team experience you were thinking of. What was it like to were you on this team? Were you leading this team? Like tell me a little more about the experience.
So I started as being part of the team, and as we grew and our responsibilities grew, I was in charge of the team, our day to day, not as a people manager, but more like the tasks and the priority. Uh, it taught me a lot, like how should you approach these problems, what you should consider. Life is not black and white. Sometimes you need to meet in the middle for either the business or for people's sake because you don't want to overwork people. And I find when you find this balance, you're really able to get the best. People feel comfortable working on the team. They feel good pushing themselves a bit more than usual if needed to finish a task, and the business gets what they want. They get their thing because when people are motivated and they have the ability to maybe be a bit more creative, they're a lot more into their work. Like, so the autonomy around it as well.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It sounds like the linking of all of them. Yes, I I love the action you have on that model. It's fantastic. No, and it's such a great point, right? The necessity to have creativity and imagination needs boundaries, right? At some sort, right? You have to allow it to blossom, to grow, to exist. But at some point, right, you have to have a function, right? We are working and someone's paying. I love it. I love the model and I love the action that you built into it. So thinking of that, I want to jump into our next build, which is the exact opposite. I want you to think of the worst team experience or culmination of right worst team experiences that come together and build a model that tells a story of like what are like why are those team experiences or specific team experience so bad? Well, show us what you built, Ilya.
So A team I had a bit more trouble being a part of was sort of really a bit of the opposite of the previous one, is to where you have less guardrails. I try to or see like you have no protections, you have like uh sloped edges, and where you could, if you do the wrong move, you fall off and sort of just want to lay on your back and just go to sleep, and you have eyes all over you watching you. Really, the experiences, I think it was when I was really inexperienced, where I didn't necessarily understand the intentions of my seniors or my managers or my peers, is how you should do things effectively or work as part of a team. And uh, I was maybe feeling a bit more lost and then like in the whole thick of it. And I didn't necessarily have either the tools as part of my experience to handle this, and I felt that every wrong move I could do, which wasn't necessarily the truth, but it's how I felt about it, is that I could disappoint someone, or my task is not up to par, and that everyone's watching me. So, but I feel it's something a lot of people in their junior years feel similarly about just the like imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Am I doing right? Oh no, if I fail, what happens? So this sort of,
Yeah,
I think, conveys that.
absolutely. It makes a lot of sense, and I can get it. I feel it, like looking at the model, especially with the eyes and the lying flat, almost a paralyzing feeling. I like what you brought up there with the whole perceptions versus reality, and I think this happens a lot
Mhm.
in teams. And to your point too, right? A lot more the more junior you are, the more you can you create we create stories in our head to make sense of the world, and a lot of times those stories are false. So how do you as a leader ensure that the teams you're leading and the teams that you're working with are are telling themselves the right stories, that everyone's kind of on the same page? Because if again, if folks don't, they're telling themselves a different story than what you're hoping they understand from your perspective or other perspectives, it's hard to get those two to align.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm trying to talk with my team and other teams as well as much as I can. And I think what I try to do is, first of all, show me. Like sometimes just talking isn't necessarily good enough to convey. Not everyone can articulate how they feel. Like, show me whether it's your work or write it or something like that. And then I feel like I get a sort of like you have more senses, if you're just talking to someone and you have more input, and sometimes input in text form or like physical work is gives you a better picture. And then there's also, really believe it should be bi-directional. So also I want to be able to convey those things to people I work with. Like, so this is how I would do it, and where does this meet? So there's the perception of, I said like I want this to be done like that, or someone said it, and the more we're aligned on this, and the faster, uh, I think we'll be able to see each other's perspective more, and then the chance of this disconnect will be much less.
I really like that show me, right? That's a very different way to get around words. Words have a lot of things built into them. They have a lot of experiences that are creating assumptions, right, in the language that we use. And I have to imagine, right, especially now that we're communicating more and more via tools, digital tools, right? We've gone from, I go all the way back to adding email, but now we're in Slack, we're in all these various channels. With this kind of journey and a lot of the changes since the pandemic, like how have you seen teams and teamwork and leadership kind of shift over the past, say, 5 years or so? Because I think from what I'm hearing, there's been a lot of change. What are you seeing, and how are you keeping up with the ever changing landscape?
So definitely the pandemic changed a lot. I think I was also having a really hard time in the beginning. I really like seeing people physically at the office, and now I'm also fully remote, so it's double hard for me. I think there was a mind shift of okay, people, but just also because of the pandemic and remote work in general, is that not everyone is working necessarily in the same time zone. So you need to build processes around how you communicate effectively and that you don't have to have everyone working in the same time zone. And on the one, also giving people flexibility, people with kids or East Coast, West Coast, things like that. So yeah, changing the conversations to be as asynchronous as possible is beneficial. It has its challenges as well. Sometimes you need to wait for an answer for a long time, and especially in a mixed team where some people are in the same time zone, some people aren't. Uh, and I've learned a lot, and I think a lot of companies learned that now this is a must. Like even with return to office and everything, I think effective because still you have companies with offices in different parts of the world. So even if you're in offices in different parts of the world, is how do you really make the communication as efficient as possible? So tools like Slack, maybe some advancements in AI can help where they can fill in the picture or they can give you, for example, it's most of the team I work with, we have a like 7 hour difference in time zone, and I usually wake up and I have to catch up. So now I have to waste, I don't know, like 1, 2 hours just to catch up to what's been happening. That's time not well spent. So maybe with AI, can I, summarize everything that's happened? Is there anything critical? What am I missing? So I think with these kinds of tools, you can make communication much more effective.
And I imagine that like this conversation will be different, right? Even 3 months from now, without a doubt. What do you think is the most challenging team dynamic that's happening in workplaces now?
So I think actually it would be the mix of several. Just because just maybe it's easier to deal with a certain gap, like as you say, generational gap. But when it's like a lot of international companies is so it's all mixed up. You have like I'm now in my 30s and I've recently started hiring people younger and that are Gen Z. And for me, for the first time, I understood my seniors that hired me and what was the difference in culture. And I was always astonished to why they react a certain way. So now I see it firsthand myself. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a different perspective. It's a fresh perspective. It's a different solution. So that's very cool as well. But having that into account, uh, plus remote work from different parts of the world, so the hour difference, the cultural difference, so all of that tacked together. Where in a leadership position, I think you should be able to convey to my team can complain, oh, I don't understand what that team wants, and it could be a very valid response. I'm like, okay, so you are interpreting it from like your perspective, but take into account that that team works in a very different way, either because this is how they work in this part of the world, and this is like they're either more strict or less strict, and everybody has their own standards. Sometimes stemming from personal experience, like where you went to school or where or the companies you worked at before, if you worked in an enterprise or a startup, everything gets mashed around. So having all of that together could be very overwhelming. And how do you also prioritize what do you deal with? What's the gap that's most important, or like pinpointing what's really bothering your specific team? Because it could be different things for different teams in the same organization.
Hmm.
It
Absolutely.
really depends.
Yeah.
So I think being able to pinpoint what of the many things that are awry and trying to address those.
It is astonishing. The more diverse we get, and we have these tools that increase our flexibility to work with more diverse people, with people across the globe. But there is a cost to that, and there are some communication barriers that pop up because of time, or even I love how you bring up like just timing and contextual spaces. I worked at one point with a company in China, and we had an office in China, but it would be interesting because you're in a different mindset at 8 a.m. versus 8 p.m. you're just in a different
Oh,
space.
absolutely.
Like even talking
Yeah.
to a friend that's far apart, like you're a different kind of person at night than you are in the morning. So it's a unique blend of conversation, of language, of all of the culture, like these things that come together.
I
I How do you think, or how are you seeing AI impact communication and teamwork in general, and leadership for that matter, also?
oh I can say for sure that I've seen people asking AI questions is before I think it will make communication a bit more effective where people might misconstrue certain intentions or the tone of especially remote work and writing is and they'll say, "Can you explain what this person said to me? Does that make sense? Is that okay?" And I've seen already people using this and like, "Oh, okay, so he's not like, is this an angry message?" Or even writing to someone, "How can I write this in a less angry tone? How can I write it more collaboratively?" Because that's the real intention. Because sometimes you can come across as one thing where your intention is completely something else. So I think people being able to have something they can rely on, asking, like sort of being an advisor of how can I phrase this? How can what like or I've written this. What's the tone of this message? It could really be helpful communicating and reducing friction between teams.
Hmm. It's so interesting. I've used it for the same thing, right? Like I'm like, help me understand this message. Like I need like a second set of eyes, and that's now my second set of eyes. But it's amazing, right, to see these different, especially with text. You said that with dialects. I For myself, I just recently started using Slack, and I'm in a couple Slack channels with some communities. But I've found that like I don't have like the dialect of Slack down, right? And I think different teams have various dialects that go out there. And I've read some articles where it's like, yeah, there's a whole tone in Slack based on what type of emojis you're using. And I don't know how to communicate in this channel outside of words, which is just not enough. And so I feel like I'm missing a level. Like I'm in the kindergarten of Slack right now, and I can't quite express myself appropriately. I can only imagine, right, what it's like if that's your primary mode of communication. You clearly have to get quite good at it, but the miscommunication steps can definitely happen. As you think of leadership, like how would you describe your leadership philosophy? And amongst all of the things we're covering, what are the core tenets of how you believe leadership should be done?
I think, oh, it's something that I think a lot of people say, but the people first, I sort of say I don't want, and it sounds like a sort of I'm a saint and I'm not, but uh, I don't take credit for my people's work. I think for a very simple and pragmatic reason, and I want my people to be the very best they can. One, they make me look good. They'll help me progress my career. So I have no reason to block people from taking all the credit doing cool projects. So really giving people the autonomy to do what they want. They'll grow. They'll help the team grow via some cross-pollination. I'm always for, hey, bring up any new idea you want. We won't necessarily do it. I'm up front, but I want you to communicate that because one, I might say, "Oh, that's cool. I've never thought of doing that way," and we should, and maybe we should push back other plans and focus on that. Or other people on the team can say that and they can form a coalition and say, "Hey, Jake is right. We should do that." Maybe you're not seeing it like, in the correct light. So really giving power to the team to express themselves. Expression is very important, and like also like looking back at my experience is it's the thing I worked on the most on myself is how to express your ideas, how to express them coherently, how to express them in a way where other for them to be more agreeable, where other people would be more inclined to accept them and go your way. So this hope sort of teaching people by example, uh, from one like direction, but also I do a lot of things that I don't want my team to do, and sometimes it's do as I say and not as I do. Um, So it's very sometimes it's very hard because like, you're doing this, you're working insane hours, or you're doing this. Like, don't do that. It's wrong. I'm insane. Don't do that. Uh, so I feel that's the core of of my philosophy, really giving people the ability to self-express their ideas, autonomy, and taking the time they need to really evaluate their ideas.
Ilya, I think we got time for one more build. You got one more build in you?
Yeah, sure.
All
It's
right.
fun.
All right. Awesome. I give everyone the same last question to build. I want you to imagine that you have a room full of future leaders. They're about to embark on their first leadership role. They're all ICs right now, and they've been promoted. And I'd like you to build a model that shares some leadership advice for these new incoming leaders. Ilya, let's see your advice model.
So the advice I would give is, you see, be surrounded by with people with diverse ideas. Don't be in an echo chamber. Don't necessarily be surrounded by just like-minded people. Like like-minded in the way that people are very open to new ideas and to different ideas. So like a lot of different colors, not necessarily formed in one way. Try to be in the center of it. Hear people out, different voices, different opinions. Um, Especially things you disagree with, it would at the very least give you a perspective. Okay, I've heard that. I don't agree with that, but I haven't considered that and I haven't heard that before. And whether it will strengthen your existing beliefs or like ideas of how to do things, or will expose you to new methods and new ideas. So most of the things I've learned were from my seniors, my mentors, and by making also by them telling me go make mistakes, you'll learn from them. So surround yourself by a lot of diverse ideas.
I love it. I love it. Fantastic. Ah, great model, Ilya. So I have to ask, what was it? What? How was it building your thoughts and ideas out of Lego bricks?
Interesting. It takes some mental gymnastics that I didn't know I'm missing. So that's refreshing. Um, and as I said, there's no like one answer. When you ask the questions, I get flooded with how will I go about this? And oh, maybe I can convey this message a bit better. But I feel what you've said. Like there's no wrong answer. Just I feel the best way is just to feel it and just let it flow through your hands. Yeah,
Absolutely. And trust me, you're not missing any of the mental gymnastics. Like the stories you told were very easy to tell and see, and the models added a level of depth and meaning when you can see them. So thank you so much for playing in an uncertain area. We really appreciate it. Ilya, where can our audience find more of you? Do you have a blog or LinkedIn?
on my LinkedIn, yes. I do a lot of open source work, so you can find me on GitHub, working on a lot of project related to infrastructure, especially around Google Cloud and AWS, things I'm passionate about.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, we'll make sure to include those links in the show notes so you can find Ilya's work out there. Ilya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brandon.
All right. And this has been Herding Squirrels, your podcast about teams where we go through the nuts and bolts of teams.